Welcome to another episode of The Break Room. I'm your host, Lucinda Underwood. Today's episode is all about success stories and transformations of auto shops from good to great. Joining me in this conversation is two shop owners, Edgar Leon of Aurora AutoPros and David Anderson of Anderson Automotive. All right, so Edgar, David, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of The Break Room. It's so good to have you both here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah. So today we are talking all about success stories. Both of you are shop owners yourselves, and we're really talking about transformations, that transformation of going from a good shop to a great shop. So before we dive into the questions that I have to ask you, I'm wondering if maybe you can just give us a quick little introduction to your shop and just tell me a little bit about the journey that you've been on. Edgar, I'll come to you first on that one, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, thank you. I've been with my business for almost 12 years now. I've been in the industry for 35 years now. So I was a technician myself, or I am a technician myself. And the way that I started my business was pretty much just me and my wife. So we started with one unit that held two bays. And since then, we have grown the business 3 times that size. And we have 6 employees now. I'm a full-time business owner. What that means is that I'm no longer working directly with the vehicles. I'm running the operations most than anything, doing the management, being in the office now more of the time and dedicated more to, make the business going, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but yes, about 12 years since I've been in the business.
And you've created an amazing business in that time, I have to say.
I am very proud of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Good. And I love to hear that it's a family business as well. I know you and your wife are both very much involved.
Yeah. We have a lot of pride in what we have built. And because of that also, we believe that we have one of the best teams when it comes to the automotive industry, because we also put a lot of effort into do a lot of caring or put a lot of caring into our employees. So that way we can all benefit from, the operations and having, again, a great business.
I love that. David, How about you? What has your journey been like?
It's been quite an event. I've been in business 30 years. I'm in Summerside, PEI. Up to probably, say, 0 to 25 years in business. I tried taking management courses, quickly realized that the business evolved around me and my expertise of what I could do. Hired people, tried to get some training. Felt I could motivate my own staff, but I couldn't motivate me, so I needed to get some one-on-one training and some coaching. And it was to the point 5 years ago that I was ready. I just said, that's it. I can't make this a saleable business. The business evolves around me. I'm just going to give it to the best tech I got, and he can pay me rent for retiring. So that was the exit plan. I reached out to from a referral for ShopPros and found a coach that was in Nova Scotia. It was just the next province over. So I kind of trusted what he was telling me. So we moved from myself and one other and a service advisor to today we have 5 techs, 3 service advisors. I'm on the floor. I'm still a working tech. I choose to be there because I like being a technician. But I also have moved to coaching. That was my goal when I joined ShopPros, if I could help others. And then I also now teach for Napa, Canada. I teach technicians once a month. So the business has evolved that I can leave here for a week and a half at a time. And it still runs fine. So I learned how to run the business on systems, and I can work on the business, not in the business. So we've achieved huge success and freedom, having some sort of coaching mentor behind you, for sure.
Yeah, I love what both of you said, actually. You both highlighted really important points. Edgar, you talked about how, you really focus on your employees, taking care of them, and how that has helped with growing your business. And David, you talked about education, right? And I really love that. You were self-aware enough to say, okay, I need some help here. I need somebody to kind of come in and teach me some things and help. And then now you're teaching yourself. And I think that's fantastic. I love to hear that. And you've both been on obviously quite the journeys. So we'll talk about some of the questions I have, because, I'm sure there's shop owners listening to this episode, and maybe they are in that situation where they're saying, okay, my business is operating, but I know we can do better. We're kind of good, but I want to move us to great. And they're trying to really navigate how they're doing that. And I think, obviously that comes with that first step of being aware that maybe you're not reaching your potential. So I want to ask you both, and David, I'll come to you first on this question. What are some of the common signs that a shop may be, not meeting its full potential? And then how do you go about sort of really diagnosing the root cause? What would you say?
Well, I would say, me as a technician and not business trained, I did learn very early that build hours is what we have to sell. Parts go one-on-one with build hours. But so if I hire myself and I'm working 40 hours a week, I should bill 40 hours a week. And I realized I was only billing 30, say. And then I hired another tech, and I'm billing 40, 50, but now I have two techs that should be billing 80. So that was the first hurdle, was to figure out where the holes were in that system. Was it the front? Was it the back? Was it me? Was it training? Was it equipment? There was a lot of thought process put into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that answer. Edgar, what about you? What are some of the sort of the common signs? And then how would you sort of dive into diagnosing the issues?
Yeah, Lucinda, for me, from the beginning, I knew, or I understood some of the numbers that has to go with a successful business. What your margins should be, what a car count means, what hours per row means, and all these different details. So even though I started all me being everything, I knew that one day I wanted to grow up to where I want to disconnect myself from the business. But understanding these numbers was very important. Now, when I got to the point that I wasn't getting the right, I wasn't getting the amount of vehicles to work on, that the revenue that we were making, I wasn't sure if that was going to be enough. So when I started to look at all these different things that I didn't know what was the next step, is when I hired my first coach. So because I got to the point that I'm like, I know that I can make more, but how? I didn't know how. So, and that's when I started to feel stuck, right? And when I felt stuck is when I went and looked for help. That was my journey. And I think the only way to diagnose, if you have somebody else helping you from the outside, that it is not involved emotionally in your business or freaking out, if you will, to see what are the options out there, and talk to other business owners. So
Yeah,
that was huge for me.
Yeah, that's such a good point as well, because, having those outside eyes on your business and like you say, somebody who is not as emotionally tied to the business, I think they can probably be more objective.
Correct.
And really kind of bring your attention to some things that maybe that you wouldn't have necessarily sort of looked at immediately, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That they can help you push some buttons that you didn't know that you had it.
Yeah.
To find out what's next, and it's scary, but it's a process.
Well, and I mean, I'm also a big believer that, you don't grow without being uncomfortable. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And as you mentioned about, you knew you could grow the business. You knew that opportunity was there, but it's how do you do it, right? It's how do you scale? And I think that's probably quite a common challenge for all business owners, not just kind of in our industry. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, getting the right help at the right time is so important for
But
sure.
I think you have to make a decision, if you could, from the very beginning. What is it that you want from your business? Because
Yes.
that can give you a head start and start planning for it. Because if you know what direction you're going and those things are not happening, that's the
Right.
first sign of seeing if your business needs help or not.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all around, you know, how you create a plan, and you need to have that end goal. You need to know, okay, this is my objective. So then you can kind of work backwards, right? And say,
Correct.
okay, what do I need to have in place? What systems do I need to have? Where does our performance need to be in order to grow to that level? Yeah, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Let's talk about customers and customer feedback. Because again, you know, any transformation of a business, of a shop, it's a journey. It does not happen overnight. And I'm sure, you know, customer feedback is something that's gonna come into that. So, and Edgar, I'll come to you first on this one. You know, how important is customer feedback in really kind of allowing you to identify issues? And then what methods do you actually use in order to gather that feedback and use it productively?
So I think it's important having a customer feedback, but one thing to keep in mind, in my point of view, the customer only feedback is going to come from the money that they pull out of their pocket, right?
Right.
So they're going to be emotionally attached to how much is going to cost them to do the repairs. But at the same time, there's customers that they grow with you in the business, that they have the best interest, that you can develop a relationship and being straightforward to those customers and ask, hey, what do you think we need to improve? What do you think is working best? And if you can ask all these questions to people that you become very familiar with, or you build up that relationship as a customer, I think is very important, you know, to have all the customer feedback. So asking them directly when they visit your shop is one way. But now with the new era, I mean, having a website where you can get reviews from your customers, having, you know, an account with Google or Yelp or wherever, all these platforms where you can put yourself out there for your customers to give you what they think or what was their experience coming to the shop, I think is one way to go about in gathering all this data. So that would be the easiest way for me, you know, to think that will be the best way to communicate with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes down to, you know, using the tools that are available, right? Like you say, you know,
Right.
having that presence on Google. And I think we all know now, I mean, the modern day consumer, they're typically going and researching that stuff before they
Absolutely.
really kind of approach a business, right?
Right. And I will say probably that's the number one resource that customers have right now to come to you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. David, what are your thoughts? So again, you know, how important is customer feedback in that process? And what are some of the ways that you collect and implement the feedback you receive?
It is super important. For the first 25 years of business here, I honestly didn't want to know or call people.
I love
I
your
just,
honesty.
I just didn't want to know. I felt that we were busy because I was good at what I did, and my personality is like a goldfish out front. So once I hired somebody for the front, then I feel that we worked on customer service first because we lacked that, and then we moved to customer experience. So now we really pay attention to their stories. We really focus hard on building relationships. That's what we do there. There's tools to monitor that. There's reports for loyalty. Have they been in so many times? We really focus hard on having relationships with clients that we know what's going on and their kids are in this, and we help sponsor that and a presence in the community. Now, as far as we've just moved a year ago to have a third service advisor. She does staging, but she also does thank you calls for us. So she will call. The questions aren't, was there any issues with Anderson? We don't ask a loaded question like that. Just
Right.
how was your experience? Were you greeted coming in the door? Some key questions like that to make them feel like they belong there and that we wanted them there, not that they're bothering us, I guess.
Yeah, you made a really good point there as well, like differentiating customer service and customer experience, right? Because customer service is, it's what you do in the moment, but customer experience is ultimately how that customer feels about the whole experience, every single interaction, the quality of the work, pricing. And I think you hit the nail on the head there when you were saying about, you really focus on building relationships. Well, you both said about it. Focus on building relationships with your customers. When you know customers on a personal level, that's just going to enhance that experience, I think. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
It creates loyalty.
It does. It does. And, in our industry, trust and, comfort is so important, isn't it? To have that relationship with our customers where they do trust us and they know that we're going to advise them, and act with integrity, right?
Actually, we focus first on that customer relationship, and the sale comes afterwards.
Right.
Because and we here at our shop at Aurora AutoPros, we have meetings every Tuesday. Every Tuesday after work, we order food, we talk for an hour. At the same time, we have one-on-one meetings with our guys. Once a month, I sit with them in my office. In one of the main focuses here is to make sure that my employee is going to be 100% happy, or close to 100%, right? Maybe it's not 100% realistically, but to be happy working with us, and if they are happy working with us, it's going to reflect on our customers.
100%.
So, and that's the number one key for our business to make a difference. Because how many shops we can have around us? A lot of options.
Right.
And if we want to compete, we're not going to focus necessarily on price, on the type of vehicle. We keep the facility clean, the break room. We keep everything organized. But the most important is how the customer feels when they come to talk to us. And most important, how they leave when they come and pick up the vehicle. So that's to me is one of the huge keys of having a successful business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I loved everything that you said there. And I think it is having that awareness of the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
And really creating, because that's going to create a reputation, right? You're going to achieve loyalty from that customer, also probably referrals for new loyal customers. So it all has kind of a big impact. Switching again to a slightly different topic, cost management. Now, obviously, again, there may be some shop owners listening that, for want of a better word, maybe are struggling a bit. They want to take it up to the next level, and they're really sort of trying to look on how they can effectively manage costs. David, I'll come to you first. What are some effective strategies in cost management, and how can a shop really reduce, make an effort to reduce expenses without compromising on their quality of work? What would you say to that?
I may need a second to think about that one.
That's fine. I can come to Edgar first, and then then we'll come back to you. Edgar, what was have you experienced that before? And what would your advice be when it comes down to kind of cost management?
Yeah. First of all, when you come to focus on cost, right? You need to understand as a business owner what is your business has to produce and how much you have to charge, what your margins should be, how much your employees cost you. You need to understand all of this before coming to the sense like, do I need to cut my costs, right? Because if you cut, let's say, something that whatever you're paying and you compromise that at that point you're not making enough money for yourself or for the business, something else is going to get affected. Now, when you understand that and you understand the margins that you need to hit, if one strategy to reduce costs might be talking to your parts department, right? To whoever manage your parts and say, hey, what else can we do here in order to bring the cost of my parts down? So that way you're not pretty much cutting on what you need to cut on the bottom line of your business. You're trying to compensate that by getting something a less cost, a lower cost, but still a quality of part.
Right.
That's one thing. Maybe revisiting what you pay for insurance, what are you getting covered as an insurance, to see if you can make any adjustments. How much are you spending on advertisement? Can you come up with a different plan? Can you do it differently? So those are the areas that I can say maybe go and look and dig and see if there you can save some money that way. Because when it comes to the operations, if you start hiring people that, that you don't have to pay them good money, that can also take a hit on workmanship, right?
100%.
Because you want to have good technicians working for you. And nowadays, they are really expensive, really expensive. So those are the first thing that comes to
That makes sense there, though, and I want to pick on a couple of things there. The first thing you said, you have to really know the numbers, and that's huge, isn't it? Take the time to know exactly what your margin should be, know exactly what your overheads are, and then dig into those further. And maybe there are some of those costs that, I loved what you said about, looking at insurance and advertising. Do you track the return on investment from your advertising? Do you actually take the time to look at that data and see how effective it has been? Because if it's not as effective as you want it to be, maybe your advertising budget is better spent elsewhere, right? That's kind of my thought. David, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah. It's like when we talk about the numbers, and I'm going to be dead honest, I didn't know any numbers other than I had to sell labor. So when I hired, say, ShopPros, they know numbers. And
Right.
I don't feel that you have to be an expert owner and everything. There's lots of owners that can't work on a car, but they need to know who to hire and manage people. So I put that in ShopPros' basket to say, monitor my numbers and help me with this. They also have the sample base to know, oh, your insurance is double than what I normally see. They can see that where I may not. I do agree with Edgar. You should learn those numbers, which I do know now over years and years. But when I look at my expenses, I go through them once a year and I ask myself questions of things that are being expensed. Am I still using it? Or did it get hidden in the, we pay for reoccurring things constantly and we may never use them. We did 5 years ago. Is the expense a perk or is it required for the business? We have a lot of perks here in the last 5 years because, of course, we're much more successful and we can have those perks, which makes life easier here for the culture inside the shop. But some of those perks, some would consider a perk, like AC in your shop, but that is a huge effect on your productivity. So you just kind of need to be able to differentiate the perk. Is it helping business or is it really just a perk? I'd also go through my warranties and my returns. A huge amount of money lost in warranty. Obviously, you have to bring it back into the bay. You're losing revenue in that bay because you're doing warranty in that bay now. So it's like a double hit. Is the training structured where it's needed? I would look at all the training you've done. If you're doing lots of warranty on whatever example it may be, maybe it's a training issue and you're sending them for diag training and they should be on steering and suspension training.
Right.
Also look at your operational costs and I look at my capacity, not necessarily the wages, but I look at, is every tech billing out over 40 hours a week? If they're not, that's my number one fix is that. So.
Right. And then that, then that leads you to then be able to kind of dig deeper from there. Yeah. And I really liked what you said about, you don't have to be an expert at everything. And I think the smartest business owners are the ones that recognize that. They recognize that early on that, okay, if there's an area that's not my particular skill set, I need to find somebody who has that skill. Right. And then trusting them to be able to do that. Yeah. Love it. Before we're almost at wrapping up time already. But before we wrap up, again, think about the listener that is maybe kind of listening to this episode and maybe going through some struggles with their shop right now. Are there any kind of final tips or advice that you would want to finish the episode on? What would you say to them?
So what I did at my beginning stages, I talked to my parts provider, and they usually have groups of other shop owners to create mastermind groups. I went and threw myself into groups of people that were doing already what I wanted to do. So was intimidating to be next to people that knew way more than what I knew and way more successful, right? But that was the only way. If I did not expose myself to all of that, it would have been harder, I guess. I mean, finding those mastermind groups, finding coaching, also options. And that's the only way. Get yourself involved was any education that you can, seminars or anything that's going on that has to do with your business. I mean, I think any information that comes to running a business, it will be important for anyone to get exposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. That never stop learning. And I think that is very important. And also, like you say, surrounding yourself with people that are doing the thing that you want to do. Because not only are you going to learn that way, but it's probably also going to give you some encouragement as well. Because it can be a bit of it can inspire, it can give you kind of some energy and probably also belief that what you want to achieve is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. David, do you have any thoughts on that we haven't covered?
Well, if I had to give advice from my experience, one-on-one coaching was important for me. It gave me motivation. It gave me accountability where I had a checklist to get something done. 2 would have been group coaching because now I have fellow peers that are perhaps more successful than I am, perhaps less successful, but we're all in it together. And usually one of those people have experienced something I'm trying to do, and they are the expert. So I do get lots of information on that. And then the other thing that I feel this was life-changing for me is when I brought somebody into the shop, because one, I'm about relationships and trust, and I trusted no one until my coach came to my shop and knew what I was talking about. So the other thing is I feel biased because I'm a technician. So my shop is developed from the back to the front. Most people's shops are done from the front to the back. I would highly recommend that if you brought in somebody to evaluate your business and to look at your flow from the complete circle. I want to go, client to service advisor to technician, and then back to the owner, and make sure that they touch every one of those aspects of your business and see if they all flow together, because everybody has to win at this. The client, the technician, the service advisor, the owner, or it fails. So I do find that, I don't know who or what, but I know there's people that'll come in and they'll focus just on the back and they'll focus just on the front. I really feel they need to be aware of the whole circle of how this business flows, and you'll have much better success instead of, I hear it all the time. Well, my technicians aren't producing. It's the technician's fault. Well, it most likely is the flow in the front. They can't estimate fast enough. There's things that's hurdles that makes the technician slow, or vice versa. There's usually, it's not just one area that jams things up. It's always, if it's the owner or whoever, somebody's jamming it up.
Right. And I mean, all of those areas are interconnected. So I like that kind of making sure that you do take that holistic view, right? Not just focusing on one area. Well, listen, both of those great tips to finish on. Thank you both for taking the time to chat with me today. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure our listeners will enjoy it too and take some great tips from you. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this episode of The Break Room, driven by ShopPros. To learn more about what ShopPros can do for your business, check out ShopPros.com. If you like this episode, please leave us a comment or a review, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. The Break Room, where great automotive minds meet.